Reaching coverage you can count on with WRAL News.
Earlier this week during our 7 o'clock news, we shared results from a new study conducted by researchers at UNC and Harvard. The results showed most Americans are dealing with some type of mental and/or emotional stress associated with the pandemic. Tonight, we're talking about ways to deal with some of the common problems a lot of people are dealing with. Molly Birkholm is a renowned trauma and stress management specialist, as well as a yoga and meditation instructor who has probably been very busy over the last few months. Molly, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Molly, let's start with stress management. Even as states like North Carolina start to reopen, a recent survey from UNC Chapel Hill shows more than half of the people surveyed reported higher stress levels than before COVID-19. What are some of the ways that it's showing up in people?
Well, certainly some of the main indicators are insomnia. Sometimes we can use coping mechanisms to deal with the day, but at night when you lie down to sleep and you can't sleep, that's a real problem. So it's really showing up there. It's also showing up in some really worrisome aspects, like 53% from that great study you mentioned out of UNC and Harvard, being more worried about finances, 43% moderate to extreme levels of loneliness, over 51% feeling more anxious and less at ease. So these stats really worry me because they result in things like higher addiction rates, higher rates of mental illness, as you mentioned, as well as increases in things like domestic abuse and suicidality. So it's really essential right now that we find ways to cope with this and to be kind and loving and understanding, compassionate of the stress that everyone is facing.
Businesses and companies are dealing with stress as well, and not just the essential businesses that have to work through this pandemic, but companies being forced to adjust to remote working environments. What are you seeing in the companies you work with, and how are they helping employees work through the stress?
It's such a great question because, we are, of course, in stress in our households, but then we're also worried about how we can continue to do our jobs. So in that excellent UNC Harvard study, they found that 42% of people are moderate to extremely less productive. So certainly we're seeing drops in productivity. There's been a lot of furloughs, a lot of layoffs. So there's a tremendous amount of fear around that. Now, interestingly enough, what happens in the brain when we experience heightened states of stress is the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's responsible for doing the higher level thought functioning. It goes offline. It makes us unable to think through things and make decisions. So a lot of things people are reporting are being unable to make decisions. There's been a lot more anger, a lot more stress and tension in interpersonal relationships. And I think we can see that as well in this fabulous study. A moderate to extreme levels of stress, 42%. Increase in anger. We can see that playing out in so many different aspects of society. So companies are really turning to me and other people who do work like I do and saying, how can we support our employees? How can we help them not just do their jobs, but also have, really happy and stable family environments? Because of course, whatever's happening at home comes right into the office as well.
Right. Resilience is something we keep hearing about. Don't worry, be resilient. We'll get through this. Can you give our viewers a better idea of what this means and how it is used during stressful times?
Absolutely. So stress is a response to a circumstance. Circumstances don't have a response inherent in them. Stress is our body and our mind's physiological and neurological response to stressful conditions. And so resilience is our ability to withstand challenging circumstances without having a heightened stress response. So essentially, if you like the science part, which I do, I'm a science geek, but if you like the science part, it's shifting from that fight, flight, or freeze sympathetic nervous system over into the parasympathetic nervous system that's more of the relax and restore response. And we can do that very proactively, as I've worked with the military for the past 13 years, really help supporting people and preparing for stressful circumstances. So then when they're in the stress, they have a heightened ability to not get that stress response, which, of course, is indicated in so many serious illnesses, mental, physical illnesses, from heart disease to diabetes to hypertension, certainly suicidality and other depression, anxiety, insomnia, health conditions like that.
Now, Molly, you mentioned this, and people also, the UNC study mentioned it. People are having trouble sleeping through this pandemic. Stress keeps people up at night. What do you tell people who say they can't sleep?
So really important is to prepare yourself for sleep, just the way you would prepare yourself to go to work in the morning, have your morning wake up, your cup of coffee, do the things you need to do. Likewise, we need to prepare ourselves for sleep. So just on a chemical level, the hour or two, and I would suggest 2 hours before you go to bed, you really need to cut the screen time, turn down the lights in the house. You can buy some nice candles or some ambient light, because what's happening when you do that is your body starts releasing melatonin. If you're blinding yourself with screens, your brain is tricked into thinking it's daytime, and it doesn't secrete melatonin at the same level that it does if you are letting the lights calm down. Our bodies are still really very primal. And then at night, do things like play a game with your family, read a book, we have a dance party, do something fun. My son and I do dance parties every night after we wash the dishes. Go for a walk, tire your body out. We're kind of like puppies or kids. The more we tire our bodies out, when we go to fall asleep, we'll be better prepared. I also suggest using things like Yoga Nidra, which right now, Great Courses, on Great Courses, the daily website, my entire 24-class resilience course is being offered for free, which is in order to serve people during these really stressful times. So you can go to the Great Courses daily in order to find that course. And there's all sorts of classes on insomnia, but you can use things like guided meditation, breathing exercises, trying to make your exhalation longer than your inhale. Those are some really supportive ways to calm down.
So get in the mood to sleep, basically.
Get in the mood to sleep, yes.
All right. Molly Birkholm, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We hope this conversation will help people who are out there still struggling with this pandemic.
Thank you.
All right. If you'd like to learn more about coping with stress, you can sign up for Molly's course called Building Your Resilience. It's currently available for free on greatcoursesdaily.com.